Welcome to the Salt Lake City Planning Commission meeting on January 8th, 2025. I want to note that the public meeting rules are posted at the entrance to this room or in Section D of the Planning Commission Policies and Procedures. So if you want to speak on one of the items on our agenda tonight, you can fill out a comment card, and then we'll call on you when your item is up. All the public comments that are emailed or called into staff before this meeting have been shared with the commissioners, and they're part of the record. So we always appreciate comments and the public watching this meeting on TV or attending. The first item on our agenda today is a report of the chair, and I wanted to mention that we're seeking applications for a planning commissioner from Salt Lake City 3, which includes the neighborhoods of the Avenues, Capitol Hill, Federal Heights, Guadalupe, and Marmalade. You can go to the Salt Lake City Planning Commission website, look for the vacancies tab, and there's an application that you can fill out online. The planning department collects applications. The mayor appoints commissioners with the advice and consent of the city council. And we're particularly interested in residents with experience in urban planning and urban design, real estate, nonprofit work, land use law, housing, construction, and architecture. Although if you're interested for any reason, I would encourage you to apply if you live in that District 3. That's the end of my report. Does the vice chair have anything to report?
I have nothing to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Now it's a report of the planning director.
Good evening. Just a couple things to mention. Commissioner Scheer requested a PUD and a plan development discussion. That's scheduled for the 22nd of this month. You'll see that on the agenda. And then staff has identified some training needs that include local historic districts and some preservation policy. Any additional requested training can be submitted to Aubrey, and staff will put those presentations together for those trainings. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the approval of meeting minutes, and we don't have any to approve today, so we're done with that item. The next thing is an open forum where commissioners can discuss planning, zoning, and general land use items that are not listed on the agenda. We have 10 minutes for that. There's no public comment during that. As Kelsey mentioned, we're going to have a training on local historic districts later this year, so that'll be a really good time for us to ask questions about the process, like discuss it a little bit more in depth, because by regulation and by rules, our discussion on agenda items is really pointed to what that agenda is. So this is a good time to bring up if you want to learn about something in the future or if you have questions. So you're free to bring anything up that you want to. Okay? You good? Okay. So now we'll go to the regular agenda. The first item on our regular agenda is a reconnaissance level survey rating change for Upper Yale Local Historic District. The planner is Nanette Larson. If you want to present the item for our consideration today.
Thank you, Chair. To get started, as part of the application to designate the Yale Crest Upper Yale as a local historic district, planning staff is recommending updates to the 2005 Yale Crest Reconnaissance Level Survey to change the historic status ratings of 3 structures from non-contributing to contributing, and these 3 structures are located at 1820, 1828, and 1833 East Yale Avenue. Historic Resources Survey is the principal tool for identifying historic properties, placing them in a local, state, or national historic context. It's the survey that identifies and documents historic resources and prescribes an evaluation, which is the historic status rating of its historic significance, so either non-contributing or contributing to the district. A contributing property is a property that has retained its historic integrity and generally has its major character defining features that are still intact. While this review is only for the 2005 Yale-Crest survey rating updates, let's first talk about the background and process so far that we've taken for the Yale-Crest Upper Yale Local Historic District designation to kind of give Planning Commission a better context to the survey's status ratings update and the staff's recommendation, and explain the distinction between the designation and the rating changes. The recommended rating updates to the three structures are all located within the Yale-Crest Upper Yale Local Historic District. The proposed Yale-Crest Upper Yale Local Historic District, which is highlighted in red on your screen. The proposed Upper Yale District is within the Yale-Crest National Historic District and includes 24 properties. The director's report for the Upper Yale Local Historic District designation with the accompanying survey rating updates was presented to City Council last year. At that time, they indicated to staff to continue with the local historic district designation process. On June 5th of last year, the Historic Landmark Commission heard and forwarded to Council a recommendation to approve the local historic district designation and survey rating changes. On June 26th of last year, the local historic district designation and survey updates were also presented to the Planning Commission. However, the survey updates were not on the motion sheet and were not part of the motion. So the Planning Commission only forwarded a recommendation that City Council approve the local historic district designation and did not include the rating updates. Because this was not part of the recommendation last year, only the survey updates need to return to the Planning Commission for a recommendation. So this is not a public hearing for the local historic district designation request. It's only for the survey historic status ratings. So now let's get to the historic status rating details and what that all entails. So before we started the local historic district designation process, a member of the State Historic Preservation Office and planning staff evaluated the properties located within the proposed historic district and confirmed that the 19 structures listed as contributing in the 2005 Yale-Crest Reconnaissance Level Survey remain contributing. It was here they also identified 3 structures that were originally listed as non-contributing to now contributing to the historic character of the neighborhood. This change from non-contributing to contributing was due to minimal changes of the structure that did not alter its historic integrity. So this map on your screen, which is also included in the staff report, shows the locations of the 3 properties within the recommended, with the recommended historic status ratings updates in the proposed local historic district. And to finalize, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission forward to City Council a recommendation to approve the 2005 Yale-Crest Reconnaissance Level Survey to include a historic status rating of contributing for the properties located at 1820, 1828, and 1833 East Yale Avenue. And if the Planning Commission has any questions or comments for me, the applicant for the Upper Yale Local Historic District designation isn't here because this is for the rating status changes. But I am happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. I'm going to open the public comment, the public hearing now. If there's someone from the recognized community organization of Yale-Crest Neighborhood Council, Foothill Sunnyside Community Council, or Keep Yale-Crest, you can speak. Otherwise, I have a comment card from Cindy Cromer. If you'd like to introduce yourself and make your comment, you'll have 2 minutes.
So I'm still Cindy Cromer. Oh my goodness, it's loud tonight.
It's loud tonight.
Jeepers. What appears to be a light night for you all is not. That's because the status of contributory versus non-contributory is the single most important issue for a local historic district. The status determines whether the concentration of contributory structures is sufficient to recognize the district. Number 2, whether the owners qualify for tax credits. 3, which portions of the zoning ordinance apply in the permitting process. And 4, most importantly, whether the building can be demolished by administrative processes. This petition is also important because the city has acknowledged making 3 errors. You knew I would show up, right, to say that. The error rate is 3 out of 24 properties, or 1 out of 8. Given the consequences that I mentioned earlier, I find that error rate sobering and troubling. Additionally, it has taken 20 years to identify and correct these 3 errors. So the consequences of making an error, the error rate itself, and the time to correct the error are important. Thank you for showing up tonight to fix this. It is not a perfunctory decision you're making. It is profoundly important to these buildings. Thanks.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak on this item? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing on this item. Now it's time for, well, let me outline the possible actions. We can make a positive recommendation to update this the survey to the city council. We can send a negative recommendation to the city council, or we can have a continuation to a date certain with or without closing the public hearing. That's what we can do during this meeting. Now it's time for a discussion or a motion, if anyone has any questions.
Nanette, can you just clarify that it was the SHPO staff that has also concurred that these are contributing structures?
Yes, it was.
Okay, thanks.
Staff concurred, and the Historic Landmark Commission also approved these upgrades during their meeting in June.
Correct. Both the designation and the historic status ratings were included in their motion sheet.
Right.
So they made that recommendation for council to approve.
So it was just we just didn't say that language when we made our motion.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
So I'm biased because I work at SHPO, but not in this department or this section. But you know, the SHPO is the organization that does the National Historic Register and has all of the data regarding contributing structures and the history of them. And so I feel very confident, if you conferred with them as well, that they deem that these structures are contributing.
Yes, they were the ones that made the recommendation
Yeah,
to change the status ratings.
I'm really comfortable with that. So I'll make a
Entertain a
motion if no
motion.
one else has
Yeah.
questions. Did you, Landon, have a question?
I mean, I do, but I'm the commissioner that's most concerned with historic districts, and I'm willing to kind of move forward on these. I'm glad we're going to have a longer discussion at some point to be able to kind of talk about the kind of broader scope of it. Just to kind of earmark a couple of things that I'm concerned about. Even in the staff report itself, it says that the recent affordable housing overlay, which allows demolition of historic houses for multifamily housing installation, has concerned quite a few of the residents in this area, and that's understandable, but I also think that that little paragraph kind of illustrates the balance that I see is at stake with historic districts, which is low bar, creating more affordable housing units without red tape and bureaucracy versus increasing that red tape and bureaucracy in order to keep something that community holds as precious. And so that kind of balance, I think, is really important. We are also in a housing crisis, and we the way that the kind of historic preservation happens seems to be piecemeal. It seems to be this little tiny piece here, and then that isn't necessarily talked about in the plan and framework of the entire city at large. So the way that this neighborhood is affected does affect the rest of the system at large, and I don't think that the way we do it makes it so that we fully understand the ramifications of this piecemeal, almost spot zoning overlay that we are doing.
Commissioner Krasik.
And that's it.
And what's in front of you tonight is a decision, a recommendation, not a decision, on the status change of 3 properties that are recommended by staff and recommended by the State Historic Preservation Office. The recommendation for the Upper Yale District has already been made. That's not on the table this evening. When we come back for a training for the local historic district process and our preservation policy, which is adopted, I think that would be an appropriate place for this open dialogue.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's it. Those are my earmarks.
Okay. Well, Mike, will you pull up the case number? Okay, this is for PLN HLC 2023 is that a 00? 00571. Based on the information presented in discussion, I move that the Commission forward a recommendation to the City Council to update the 2005 Yale-Crest reconnaissance level survey to reflect a historic status rating of contributing for the properties located at 1820, 1828, and 1833 East Yale Avenue in the proposed Yale-Crest Upper Yale Local Historic District.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a motion for a positive recommendation to the City Council from Commissioner Berry and a second from Commissioner Mike Christensen. Any discussion to the motion? Okay, we'll vote. Commissioner Berry,
Yes.
Commissioner Scheer,
Yes.
Commissioner Krasik,
Yes.
Commissioner McCall Christensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Mike Christensen,
Yes.
and I also will vote yes. So thank you. And I would invite Commissioner Krasik to make sure he comes on the local historic district training day.
I will,
Because I
for
want to hear
sure.
what you have to say. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, our next item is an alley vacation at approximately 2680 South Chadwick. The planner is Ben Buckley. I almost called you Sarah Young. That's not right. Thank you. If you'll present your application to us.
All right. Excuse me. So this is the alley vacation at 2680 South Chadwick. It is requesting to vacate the entire portion of the north-south alley here that starts approximately 140 feet south of Stratford Avenue, and it runs all the way to 2700 South. It's approximately 12 feet wide by 810 feet in length. Alley vacations do require 75% of the abutting property owners to consent. This application provided 84%. So they meet that standard there. Staff does recommend that Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council. A little history on this alley. It was initially platted in 1909 as part of the Highland Park Plat A. Very few alleys in that plat and in the general vicinity still remain public to this day. As you can see here, these are two of the access points to this alley. One has been blocked with a fence. Another has been blocked with vegetation, structures, utility poles. So it's largely inaccessible at this point. There is a lot of active enforcement cases on this alley. Every property on the Chadwick side is under enforcement for encroaching into the alley. The applicant, Mr. Thomas, submitted a permit for a garage. The permit plans had 8 additional feet of lot depth. On the legal descriptions, it was overlooked and it was granted. So the garage, as you can see here in this left photo, does encroach into the alley. And then he built a shed on the backside of the garage that encroaches even further into the alley. There's also a cinder block wall that runs down the alley. And then you can also see the current state of the alley. There's a significant lack of maintenance. There's never been paving. Standards of approval for alley vacations are outlined in Chapter 14, 52020. They must fulfill at least one of these policy considerations: lack of use, public safety, urban design, or community purpose. And as just discussed, this one fulfills the lack of use, the lack of maintenance, limited accessibility, presence of structures, vegetation, and utility poles in the alley has kind of rendered it useless at this point. Alley vacations are decided by City Council. Planning Commission will make a recommendation, approval with conditions, denial. City Council will hold a public hearing and make a decision. And if it is approved, the city will split the alley in half and just give it to the abutting property owners. Again, our recommendation is to forward a positive recommendation to the City Council. And that is all I have for you. The applicant is here but does not have a presentation, but if you have any questions for him, he is happy to try to answer.
Thank you. I'm going to open the public hearing on this item. If anyone is here from the Sugar House Community Council to speak, you're welcome to speak now. I know we had a letter from the Sugar House Community Council in the staff report. Does any member of the public want to speak on this item? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. The possible actions that we could take tonight are a positive recommendation to the Salt Lake City Council, a negative recommendation to the City Council, or a continuation to another date with continuation of the public hearing or without, either one. So now you can ask questions, make a motion, have a discussion.
I have a question. So, is there, did you or anyone else verify the signatures that they belong to the actual property owners?
Yes, I made sure the signatures matched on the county recorder.
Okay, great, thank you. And do you know if the property owners that were not approving are actively disapproving, or were they just like not interested in talking about it?
No word from them.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, sorry. Any other questions or comments? Are you satisfied with the answer that we don't have word from the, are you satisfied with the answer
Oh,
from
if
the
the
staff?
applicant wants to speak to that, that's, I would like to hear it, Chair.
Okay, yeah.
My name's Taylor Thomas. I'm the applicant. The property owners that said no, I had one slam the door in my face. Two of them are rental properties, and the other one, the guy was in South Africa at the time I was collecting signatures. So I have a verbal from him that he would have signed if he was in the country, as well as the rental properties. The owners were willing to sign the document. I just figured I met the quota, so I called it good. So I could have had in the 90 percentiles.
Thank you.
Sir, could you please state your name for the record?
Taylor Thomas, and I live at 2680 South Chadwick Street.
Somebody want to make a motion?
I'm going to make a couple comments, and commissioners can discuss or not. Some of my comments are not specific to your application, but in alley vacations in general. So I want to clarify that for you.
Should we discuss
We are.
alley
I am
vacations?
going to. It's going to be discussed. I just don't want him to feel that I'm directing any of my comments to him specifically.
Okay, well,
Okay.
stay on topic.
Oh, I will, Commissioner. So I find that the lack of use is unsatisfactory to me when it's not been used because of illegal encroachments at whatever time those occurred. So of course we're not going to have use when people have built fences, them not knowing. I don't think it's generally done willfully, but I don't find that persuasive as meeting the standard of lack of use when, of course, the alley has been obstructed, whether it's a garage, a fence, or car parts, which was the last one we saw. So I'm generally not in favor of saying that that standard is satisfied in my mind. I also love my alley, so I generally look at alley vacations very critically because I think we are also taking away future property owners' ability to do certain things, which is what I ended up doing by building a new garage that faced my alley. So I was able to have a yard instead of a bunch of concrete. So I think about future land use or future property owners in that, but I generally don't find that the standards are met when we look at lack of use, considering the alley has been blocked off for however many years. And those are my comments related to this, but I want you to understand I'm not trying to point anybody out and say you've done bad things. So I'm personally not in support of a positive recommendation, but this is ultimately the City Council's decision.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Thank you.
Based on the, excuse me, this is for PLN PCM 2024-00973. Based on the information presented in discussion, I move that the Commission recommends that the City Council adopt this alley vacation.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a motion for a positive recommendation to Salt Lake City Council from Commissioner Scheer and a second from Commissioner Mike Christensen. Any discussion? Okay. Commissioner Scheer? You're
Yes.
voting. Thank you. Commissioner Scott?
No.
Commissioner Krasik?
Yes.
Commissioner Mike Christensen?
Yes.
Commissioner McCall Christensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Barry?
No.
And I also will vote yes. So the motion to forward a positive recommendation passes with 5 yeses and 2 nos. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, y'all. Have a good night.
Thank you. All right, now it's time for other business, which I don't have any, although I think that we should use the open forum time to identify items that we want to discuss or get more training on or speak generally about. I think that we should use that time and keep our agenda discussions really pointed. So that's the end of my other business statement. Remember to apply for the Planning Commission if you live in District 3. And then I'll adjourn this meeting. Thank you.